Hello, my dear.
Howdy, howdy. Hello, hello.
Hey, Bob.
Hello, sir.
Hey, how are y'all?
Doing
Hi.
good.
Good. Gonna give it a couple of minutes, let everybody log in.
Bob, I'm RSVPing for Golden.
Okay, hold on, let me get that list. Okay, good. Are you bringing anybody, Jeff?
Not
Chris,
this one.
I'm sorry. Yeah, Jeff.
No.
Yeah, you okay?
Not this
Just yourself. Okay. All right. Tim, you gonna make it?
Sorry. I don't know, sir. My granddaughter's supposed to be born around that time.
Oh,
I don't
gotcha.
miss her birth.
Well, we'd love to see you out there.
I
Okay.
hope I can make it, but I want to see my little girl come into this world.
I'm sure. And Sensei Dervish, we'd love to have you over here.
It's a little bit difficult at the moment.
All right.
I'll try my best though next time.
All right, sir.
Yeah, I think we even have direct flights into Colorado now from the UK.
Awesome.
Hello, Master Oliver.
We've got some interesting background noise.
Yes, sir. I'm just, everybody's kind of getting on. I got to change my name and we're just getting organized.
Yeah, it always wants to make you me.
Yes, sir. That's the only way I can help you with the controls.
Exactly.
Why doesn't it want to change it?
Better you than me is all I can say.
I try to help. Except it doesn't want to change my name.
It just did.
There it goes.
It just has a little bit of a delay. It shows up before you see it.
Yes, sir.
So, folks, let's get started here. And I wanted to go through a couple of things really quick. One question or comment, I guess we had. I'm going to forget who posted it here. We had somebody who said, "I'd really like to hear somebody other than Oliver Smith and Moody talk about how they change their prices because I'm cheap and I'd rather charge more. But I'm tired of hearing you guys talk about it." That was Jack. Let's see, Jack. How did you say it here? May I suggest a topic that some school owners who started at rock bottom pricing are now at price points they should be discuss their transformation instead of the big three talking about it. It was so helpful when you had Colby Winkler speak about this ascending to higher rates. We have gone up in price, but we're nowhere near where you want it. I'm getting a good grip on my marketing and much more, but still struggling in that area. So Jack, that was you. Jack, what price point did you start at?
Can you hear me okay?
We can.
Okay. Well, we were doing like 99 for Tiny Tigers. We were doing 115 for our traditional members. Now we've structured to where we have a basic, a black belt, a leadership. And for new students, now we're at 149.
Okay.
We brought the other students up to 130.
Yeah.
And new students, we start them in basic at 149. I think we're black belt at 189 and leadership at 229 is how we're approaching this with new students. But I know it's still way off from probably where you'd want me to be at. But I guess what I was looking for, sir, was people that have done that. Were really rock bottom where I was at, and doubled or tripled their enrollments, and what had happened. It would be interesting to see. Did it turn people away? Did it actually make them more likely to join? I mean, when they had the courage to do that, what were the results? So
is Olga,
could speak on that.
Olga Keith or Amanda Olson on, because they both did that.
Yeah, we have Amanda. Amanda, do you mind chipping in here to say, let me address this first for you, Jack. Jack, the first thing to do is get out of this thought that what you did yesterday has anything to do with what you did in the future with the next person who walks in the door. Okay? Now, the only exception to that is the occasional referral for whom your student has sat down and had a face-to-face and shown them everything. But that doesn't happen very often, right? And especially as you fix your marketing and replicate what Jan Lappin talked about last week, et cetera, is very few of them come in with any predisposition, right? So the first thing you've got to get out of your mind is that it matters what you used to do for the next person who walks in the door, okay? And really anchor that in, because what I hear in your question and what I hear a lot is, I've been doing this, and so I should increment it up because I don't want to offend people on the enrollment conference. Well, they don't know what you used to charge. And you don't have to charge in the future what you used to charge. And there's all kinds of other examples in the industry. Doesn't matter how much a plane ticket was last week. It matters how much it is this week. Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? The other thing to anchor in is that the only place it matters is with your current students. And usually that's about launching the next new program. And, our structure, which we don't talk about a lot on renewals for Quickstart. We want to get everybody focused on fixing their enrollment pipeline first. But our structure for the renewals tends to be whatever they were paying before is you can have a program that doubles that, and then you can have one that kind of splits the middle, right? So if I was charging $149, that's what they're paying, I could have a renewal that is $297, and then I could have a fallback at maybe $247 or maybe a little below that. But that ratio holds up regardless of what they were paying before, right? So if they were paying $95, I'm not going to launch the leadership program and charge $500 because that's too big a leap for my ability to smoothly explain it to them. But if they were paying $99, I can have one at $197, let's say. And then if they're paying $149, I can have it at $297. And I can increment it up that way based upon where they were at before. Does that make sense? And the way you launch that, when you do that, is you have a big renewal blitz. You explain to them they're being grandfathered in because leadership is going to be $497, but it's only, let's say, $247 for them. So they're going to be saving $250 a month for 5 years if they do it now. And of course, a lot of them say, well, can't we wait till the end of a year or whatever? And of course, the answer is, of course you can. I just hate to see you pay the extra $10,000. Well, what do you mean? Well, as of September 15th, the price is this, and I'm giving you the opportunity to be grandfathered in, but you've got to take advantage of it or not. I mean, it's your choice, right? So that's the first thing. But let's shift to Amanda to address your request. Amanda, what did you charge a year ago?
When we started, we were the same. We were $99 a month, and no membership agreements or contracts. It was just month to month.
So $95 a month, month to month. And what are you charging now?
We're still at the $200 a month mark for new enrollments,
Okay.
and then up from there for renewals.
Okay.
$297 for our leadership program.
Okay. Could I suggest that for back to school after Labor Day, you go to 247?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
It's me. I'm working on myself, but I know where I've been and where I am. I shouldn't have that problem. But
Yeah, but you're charging an even 200?
197.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, go to 247.
Amanda, did you just jump up from 99 to 197? Did you stair step it? How did you do that, ma'am?
We started when we joined the group last July. We went to 149, but we only did that for a couple of months, and then we went just right to 197 because we need to get the $200 per person price point. That's what we're going for. And there's no way to even at 200, really, when you factor in, some family members and other discounts and stuff, you can't get to $200 a person. And that's where I know 247 is the right number.
Yeah.
The math just doesn't work.
Okay. Jack,
in your mind, at the bottom and the top.
Yeah. Jack, in your mind, why would you stair step? Why would you do it slowly?
Great question. I think, well, I don't know. I think it's just a confidence thing. I think, if I went up $40 here or $30 there, I don't know. It's just mindset or something. But I was going to actually ask Amanda, so what happened when you went directly to, so you stair stepped a little bit. So what happened when
we shouldn't have, because that hurt us in the future for the renewals. So I would just say it go right at least 197.
And you think that what was your enrollment? Did all of a sudden people go woo, or all of a sudden new people, did they
honestly
or did they were they
not
good?
Our enrollment numbers had not gone down at all. And in fact, with all the extra marketing and things that we've been doing, they've gone up. It didn't, I thought the same thing. Oh my gosh, people are, and some people can't afford it. But we were marketing to the friends of the people who were paying $99. So that made a lot of sense to me was, look for other places to market. And once you start bringing in people who can afford the 197, they're going to bring in their friends who can afford it. Okay. And it's just very obvious. The other thing that was very obvious was how committed the new students were, because they're paying for it. The parents are showing up. They're coming to their classes. They're signing up on an agreement, a 12-month agreement to start. And then we started renewing them after 2 weeks. So hopefully before they get their first belt, they've already renewed to a leadership program. We're getting better and better at that. We had this month we've had a 75% close rate on renewals, and that's been 23 renewals this month.
Nice.
Wow, excellent.
Okay.
And what at $297 a month?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and we're going to get that up to $397 then $497.
That's the goal. Yes, sir.
And Amanda, can I ask you about the? Are your instructors now that I came this month and did that, and I guess that was back at the beginning of the month, or was it the end of last month? I lose track of my time. But that pre-framing that they're doing, or that I did, that you were able to record and play back for them so they can remember all of those type of renewal processes that they have to go through, not just asking people, but pre-framing them before you ask them, because then you have a better, that's why I think your closing rate on those are,
yes, sir,
because you're prepping them and pre-framing them so much better.
The pre-framing, since you were here and helping us, for instance, Monday at our staff meeting, we actually spent an hour and a half role-playing renewals. And awesome. Just practicing that and getting that down better and better. And we've also implemented another weekly staff meeting for the younger staff to work on that so that they can pre-frame the black belt training, train with the black belt, mindset on the floor, the instructors. So
Awesome.
I'm looking forward to seeing that side of it taking shape too. But yes, sir, the renewal information on how to pre-frame, it just makes it so much easier. I did 4 last week, and it was just like they were so excited to be able to be invited to the next level. It wasn't salesmanship. It was just talking to people and telling them this is going to be the best thing for you and your family.
Yeah, that whole qualifying process versus you just ask everybody. You make them.
Oh, yes, sir.
And they have to go through that qualifying process. And that way they feel like they've earned the right to become a black belt in your school.
Yes, sir. And part of the qualifying process is for them to write down what they've, the parents and the children, what they've learned so far. And so you're getting a testimonial from everybody about what they've experienced in the program so far.
Awesome.
So I'm trying to build that stack of testimonials up.
Great.
But I tell you, we did the 149, and for about, like I said, about 3 months, and it didn't, we were kind of kicking ourselves for doing that. So
Right away, then you went to 197, and
we did.
Wow.
We did, and we just started. And I only had a handful of people say, "Oh, well, my cousin, they're only paying this much. Why is it double for me?" And I just told them it's a completely different program, and the things that you're getting, the benefits you're getting, are so much more than they are. And I really didn't have any pushback on that. And then the people that were paying 99, the cousins or whatever, wanted the new programming. So they,
Wow.
They wanted to renew and be in the leadership program like their lower belt family member was.
What would you designate your area? Would you say it's upper middle class, middle
Jack,
class?
you're trying to give yourself every damn excuse.
I am low income.
Really? Okay.
Yes. 65,000 people in my town, rural Tennessee. Median income, 2-family income of $35,000 a year.
I know what you're saying after all that. It's funny because I came from the north, which is, a very high-priced area. I came to northwest Arkansas, and it was very frugal in polite terms area, and so I think it's played with my head a little bit, and so it's like these guys. I don't know. I mean, so but it's good to see that you're kind of the same.
You're struggling for every excuse, which I mean is typical. I mean, it's not unusual. But Jack, our conversations is I can talk to somebody who's in Malibu, or who's in the best part of Orange County. And I literally had somebody say to me one time, "You don't understand, our students are so wealthy that they're too smart to pay that much."
Yeah.
And then I'll talk to somebody in Dodge City, Kansas, and they'll say, "You don't understand, our people are too poor to pay that much," right? Is no matter where you are, Ernie Reyes Sr., I don't know if you know the West Coast group. I was out doing a seminar for them a long time ago, and I'm sitting there with Tony and Ernie, but the entire group. And if you don't know where they're in Silicon Valley. I mean, literally, one school is like across the street from Apple's headquarters, and another school is across the street from it. They're in freaking Silicon Valley, right? And I say to them, I said, you're right in the middle of Silicon Valley. Why the hell are you charging half of what I'm charging in suburban Denver, Colorado? And they said to me, and with a straight face, "You don't understand, the cost of living is so high here, they can't afford more than what we're charging." Everybody comes up with a bullshit excuse. Okay. What happens when you raise your prices, as long as you've convinced yourself or whoever is doing the presentation is the closing rate improves, the quality of the students improves,
That I believe, yeah.
the quality of the longevity improves, and the ease of the renewal improves. Okay? And people don't believe that. It's counterintuitive. What you think is, and I'm an economist by miseducation. Economists will teach you there's price elasticity of demand, price goes up, demand goes down. Well, that's true in some things. If you're talking about gasoline, it's a proven commodity where if the price goes up, demand goes down. There's a direct relationship, an inverse price demand correlation. But in a service like ours, it actually works the opposite. As price goes up, demand tends to go up. Now, what I don't mean is you're going to raise the price and more people are going to flood their way into your door, because they still don't know you exist until you go get them and get them in. But what I do mean is when you're sitting down belly to belly, face to face, and you're doing the presentation, what happens in people's mind, and this is very well documented. There's a great book everybody should read called Influence, Science, and Practice by Robert Cialdini. If you do any of Tony Robbins' influence courses, it was based upon Cialdini's book. The NLP crowd loves Cialdini's book, in part because it's well researched and in part because he did it by modeling sales professionals. But almost the opening sentence in the book is, absent other objective criteria, price determines perception of value. So, and there's an example that may be silly in our context, but there's an example of a gift shop in Arizona. And they have these, what do you call it, turquoise or something, green rocks, right? So they have a big bowl they ordered a bunch of these green rocks, and they haven't been able to give them away. They've been sitting there for 6 months without selling any of them. So the owner's going to go on vacation, and she leaves a note for the staff. And what she meant for the note to say is, let's get rid of these, cut the price in half. And what the staff interpreted as is double the price on these. So she comes back, and in fact, all of the green rocks have been sold. And she says to the manager, she says, well, I guess cutting the price in half worked. She says, what are you talking about? We doubled the price. Well, see, the psychology, it's one thing. If I want to go buy a 2018 Porsche 911 Turbo, right? If I wanted to go buy that car, well, I could go to 2 different Porsche dealers and argue between them, but that's a known commodity, right? You know where it was manufactured, you know what it is, you know what the options are. That's a known commodity. But if I'm going to go get a heart surgeon or some other specialty doctor, or I'm going to go get a tax accountant, or I'm going to go get an attorney, we don't want the cheapest one, we want the best one, right? And the same thing is true with what we're doing, is they don't want the cheapest instructor, they want the best one. So they come in and decide, are you credible or not? Is this a quality school or not? Do I like these people? Therefore, do I want to do this? And then they figure out whether they can afford it or not. See the sequence of decision making, right? And it's not, do I want to do this school for this price, or do I want to do that school for this price in almost all cases? Does that make sense? The second element of that is that you will get people who price shop, but the people who price shop means you're not doing your marketing very well. Most of the ones that price shop are the ones that came from Google. Okay? It's, again, I mean, I don't know how many thousands of dollars over 20-some years I spent in the Yellow Pages. We were spending at one time, I think, $50,000 a year in Yellow Pages because we had to be in like 9 books or some ridiculous thing like that. But it was always the Yellow Pages calls that we didn't like as well. Why? Because we weren't marketing in a vacuum. They were shopping. Doesn't mean I wasn't going to be there. Didn't mean I didn't want them also. But they were the only ones that were shopping, right? If I went to an elementary school and got them, I went to a movie theater and got them, I had signs out everywhere and they saw it and responded. If I had rack cards out and they saw it and responded. If I was at a live event of some sort and got them. Most of them had never thought about training in martial arts. They weren't out shopping for other schools. And if they came in and liked us, they never went and looked at anybody else anyway, right? Now, if they came in and didn't like us, they probably said, well, this martial arts thing isn't for us. And I would hope that not many of them went through that cycle, right? And if they came in and liked us and wanted to do it, and then literally, you know, and this was the language some people would use, is I love what you do. It's well worth it. However, I just can't afford, you know, to, you know, put gas in the car and get here and do this. Well, that means it was the wrong fit, right? There's no amount of getting blood out of a turnip. I can't pull money out of broke people, nor do I want to, right? That's just a marketing issue, is getting to the right people. But all your questions, Jack, are the same question everybody else asked, and a lot of people are on the meeting here are afraid to raise their price. Amanda and I had the conversation 2 months ago, and she still hasn't pulled the trigger because she hasn't gotten the cojones to do it. Amanda, I'll have to send you a pair of brass balls in a wooden box. We had the conversation before, and here was the conversation, and Amanda, correct me if I'm wrong, is the conversation was basically this time last year you did like 8 enrollments, and this time this year you did 40-some enrollments, and this time last year it was $99 a month to month, and this year it was a 12-month contract at $197, and you were scared about what was going to happen if you went to $247. Is that about what our conversation was? Expand on that, Amanda.
It was exactly that conversation.
Yep.
Master Oliver, I had a conversation with Melissa Bostic yesterday, and she went on and on and on. I don't know if she's on the call. She went on and on and on about how you know, she raised her prices to $227 a month for basic, and she went on and on and on about it. She says, yeah, but you know, I just priced out all these people. And I went on and on and on about it. And you know, like I went on for about 5 minutes in the conversation. And I said to her, I said, okay, well, wait a minute. How many people did you sign up? How many people came in? And she had a 90% close rate.
Yeah.
She had a 90% close rate. I'm like, and I threw my pen. I said, I can't hit people over the call. The video conference isn't quite as effective as I'd like it to be. I like threw my pencil at the screen. I'm like, I can't. I'm like, oh my God. 90% close rate. I think everything's just fine.
I used to throw highlighters at staff.
Yeah.
Nowadays, I'd probably be arrested, but when somebody says stupid things like that, I would throw pins at them.
I told her I could. If I was there, I'd punch her husband, though.
But Master Oliver.
Well, yeah, equal opportunity. Punch her. She said the stupid shit. You know.
Oliver,
Yeah.
The important thing, and I think Jack can take this, and I want to applaud Jack for bringing this up, because there's a lot of new members that are, you know, a little reserved and afraid to say something like that because they don't want to come off as, you know, not confident enough to do something. But
they think we're full of shit is what it is, Jeff. Let me be honest.
But the idea of Jack asking and understanding what it is, it's that reservation that he has. It's really not the people coming in. The people coming in, and that's why if Amanda can do that with her demographic, if Amanda can do that with no contracts, going from 99 to 197, and again, Colby did it. I mean, there's a bunch of people that did it, and that was good that he got to hear it from somebody else, because sometimes when we say it, they say, well, you're not sitting across from that desk and having to sell that to somebody right now, even though we did it for many, many, many years. It really, I think, should stick home and let everybody know, look, sometimes you got to do like Michael Jordan. You just got to do it. You know, just do it.
Yes, sir.
That's a good point, Master Smith. I mean, you know, I'm at the point where a lot of people ask about how they can buy in and how they can psychologically get there and how they can do it. I think you just got to stand in front of the mirror and practice saying it. And that's why, you know, I train my staff to ask for $10,000, not $297. I have them practice with the bigger numbers than we even do, ridiculous numbers. So they just get desensitized to practicing for that. And that's a common sales tool, by the way. So just you got to do it and practice it, just like you got to practice for a fight, or just if you were practicing as an actor, you're just going to have to practice it. The buy-in will come after you've done enough of them that it's not a big deal. And what Amanda's learned is it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Master,
Go ahead.
can I add a comment?
Absolutely.
I just want to share for Jack and any other new members' benefit. I think it was probably 12 or 13 years ago when we first went to your marketing boot camp out in Denver.
Long time ago.
Yeah, and at that time we were at $99, and you said, "Go home, grandfather everybody in, but from now on everybody else should be." I forgot now the number, 159, 169. At that time you said, and I have to say generally I do follow your advice, but this time I didn't follow your advice. We went back and we decided, why grandfather everybody in?
Oh, yes.
Let's explain to them why we're raising the prices, why we're raising the benefits, because we had 200 students. So I wrote a letter. I don't have a lot of skills in this world, but one I do have is copywriting. So I wrote a good letter. I wrote it carefully to all of our existing students, explaining to them why we're raising the rates. And I said, this is going to start next month. We really value all of you as part of our martial arts family. If any of you have any financial reasons you can't do this, please come see me personally. George, correct me if I'm wrong. I think we had one person had a financial issue. The other 199 students all said, okay. And just by not listening to you on that one little point, which, as I said, I usually do, that right away increased our income by $10,000 a month by taking 200 people and going up $50 or $60 a month by not grandfathering them in.
I'm glad you brought up that example, Eric, because I've used that a number of times. I've used you as the example a number of times of doing that. The predicate for that story is the depth of relationship that you have with your students, right? It's fair to say that you have such a tight relationship with your students, and it is a big family. And not to say that most people on the meeting here don't, but it is an important predicate to understand that. And to further what you just said, the reason I usually say the grandfather thing is launch the next higher program and move them from 99 to 197 or move them from 149 to new 97, but launch it in the context of here's the next new thing, and you're getting a bunch more stuff. What you did, Eric, which is brilliant, but it's based on the relationship, is you said you're paying 99 and now it's 169. We really need to do this to be viable and to have a quality facility, and you wrote it very nicely. Do you still have that letter anywhere in the file?
I doubt it. I'll take a look, but I probably don't.
Yeah, but my way is easier, and I love yours, right? But I would predicate it on, you've got to make sure you have a really solid relationship with people to do that, which you of course do. But thank you for that. Who else has a story like Amanda's where you went from being super cheap to getting closer to where you should be?
Master Oliver, you got to say that Eric gets the biggest balls award, though.
Absolutely. I
just sent a certificate to you. I don't know if we can publish that.
We're going to have to start giving some of these awards in our live meetings, Master Oliver.
We are. Anybody else have the experience of going from super cheap to at least somewhat close to what we're doing for Jack's? Go ahead, Ram and Jan. Ram, then Jan.
Oh, okay. Sorry, Jan. But yeah, I had to raise my prices. It was a while back now, but I had some hesitancy because I was asking the wrong people. I was asking my staff. And
oh yeah, don't do that.
Never do that.
Yeah, and I remember Master Oliver gave him a good kick in the pants one of these calls. It was actually pretty funny. But after a bunch of time, I just said, you know what? I'm just going to raise my prices. I raised it from 187 to 247, and we were doing a bunch of daycare centers at the same time. So we had a big flow. The month I did it, we got about 10 people that signed up for 247, and they didn't blink at all. They were just boom, there you go. And it was 247 with the initial of 300, so it was 547 a piece for all of them. And
that was new students. That was new students, Ram, or was that
Used to.
Your current members.
New enrollments.
Yeah, but after we raised the initial startup, we made sure to do it for the upgrades as well. So anybody that upgraded was instantly upgraded from the 247. I haven't doubled mine to 494 yet, but I'm at 394 for my leadership.
Fantastic. Wow.
Yeah, Master Oliver, it's a good point to bring up, though, Ram. So, Ram, you went to talk to your staff and said, what do you guys think about raising your prices? You actually asked them that?
No, I told them we were going to do it, and all I got was, oh, we can't do that. We're going to be just about the money and everything, to which I got
okay.
They talked him out of it, in other words.
Yeah. So, guys, you just got to be – we got to be strong with our staff because they're always going to tend to be resistant to change. They're going to tend to not want to do stuff that they think there's going to be any pushback. That could be your schedule changing, or that could be your curriculum changing. That could be your pricing changing like this. Anything. You've got to be strong about that. That's one reason we encourage you to bring more staff to our live events, because then when they hear the stuff from us, they go, hey, that's a great idea. You know, instead of you go back from one of the live events all jazzed up about something, then you go, oh, guys, we're going to do this. What do you think? That last part of the sentence is just not right. Just go, hey, guys, we're going to do this. This is going to be really exciting. Let's get training on it. That's the end of the sentence. And that's not being mean. That's creating buy-in by getting them excited.
Yeah. Well, and anchor in the BS statement that Ram staff made is people are going to think we're only in it for the money. Right? There's this weird self-righteousness that comes with martial artists, and with I've had it, a number of times with my own staff. They all want me to pay them a lot more than I'm paying them, and at the same time, they don't want to ask for the money, right? And they're afraid of being perceived as being in it for the money. Now, that's a really strange perspective. Now, I come up with a little bit of a unique perspective. When I was in high school and college, I was managing a band, a rock band, a music group. And they used to say the same stupid shit to me. All people who are artists, I don't care whether it's martial artists, musicians, people who do paintings or photographers, all have the same crap in their mind that they want to do it for the art, okay? And there's a great quote by Paul McCartney. And by the way, the most prolific songwriting team ever in the history, who sold more albums, they can't even keep track of it. Paul McCartney was one of the first billionaires in the UK, right? I mean, these, he said, his quote was something to the effect of, people think that John and I, or that we were anti-materialistic and weren't in it for the money. He said, the reality is John and I would say to each other, why don't we sit down and write ourselves a swimming pool today? Right? Meaning write another song. John Lennon famously had, I sold for like $1 million plus. He had this big, long, white Rolls Royce in the UK that was painted by Peter Max or somebody famous like that. John Lennon, people think of him as the anti-materialistic guy. Robert, you know where he lived. If you had the entire top floor of the Dakota, is that like an expensive property?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he had the entire top floor of the Dakota building right off Central Park. If you go there now, Yoko, I think, still owns the property, but they have strawberry fields right across the street in the Central Parks from where he was shot, when he was shot right in front of their building. I don't know why people get that perspective, Ram. What I would find with staff is they wanted me to pay them more, but they didn't want to ask students for money, and they wanted to not be perceived as materialistic, but they thought somehow I was getting rich off their blood and I should give them more money. There's this weird, backwards, stupid thing that goes on in people's minds. I was, I like reading kind of the history of music too. There's a great book by the Beatles called "You Never Give Me Your Money," about the business operations of the Beatles. But there's another one that I just read about the making of the Rumors album, Fleetwood Mac, and it is interesting because behind the scenes you have these high-end artists who are passionate about their work, but the argument that Stevie Nicks was in was about publishing rights to make sure her song that she wrote got on the album. so that she was going to get more publishing income from the album. I mean, it's, you know, we're in a business, we're in a professional business. And by the way, the president of Harvard University spends the vast majority of their time fundraising. It, you know, doesn't matter at what level of academics you're in or whatever else. It's just the nature of the beast. So the ones who say you don't want to be in it for the money are the broke ones, right? Is what I find. There's an awful lot of people in our industry who hate me, and they think of me as the money guy. But the ones that hate me are the guys who are doing $6,000 a month, and their excuse is, I don't want to sell out to be like that guy. Well, anybody who's seen our black belt test and seen our students and seen the curriculum, we haven't sold out one iota. I mean, I view the reason that we want to be good at marketing is so we can get a whole bunch of students that are going to be high quality. Anyway, I digress. Jan, you had a point to make on that topic as well. And you're muted, Jan. There you go.
I'm unmuted now. Yeah, I just want to say that, you know what you said a little while ago about people think it's bullshit? I remember coming to one of the first meetings and hearing the everyone talk about the marketing. And I said, there's no way I can go to a community event and even make like one person sign up the next week, because I'd never done it before. I just didn't believe it. And it's taken me, I'm kind of like a dinosaur. It's taken me a long time to raise the rates. It's taken me a long time to make any change. And it's still taken me a while. But we've raised our rates. I guess when we started, a couple of years ago, we were $160 a month. And we just
1 year ago.
1 year ago, we were $160 and we're $216. So we're fine, slowly but surely. And you know what? We're bringing people on. So you're right. And it just takes some of us a lot longer to, my girls are better than I am. I'm afraid. Rachel made me raise the rates again just now, even though Master Moody told me to do it a year ago.
We were in the car a year ago driving to the airport, and you told me you were going to raise the rates.
I did. I kind of did. I did, but I made a special. I did raise it. $10 a month.
Jan, the difference between $216 a month and $247 is $30 a month from 300 people. Okay, that's $9,000 a month in net profit because there's no additional expense. And I say it that way for a very specific reason, because there's no other difference. When somebody hears 216, emotionally and psychologically, it's the same as them hearing 247. You're not going to price anybody out with the extra $30. You'll have people who can't afford it. But my experience in, you know, suburban Denver, Colorado, face-to-face, belly-to-belly, was the people who couldn't afford our rates were typically the ones that couldn't afford anything more than $50 a month. I couldn't lower the rates enough to make it affordable for people who are destitute, right? And a lot of them who didn't enroll, you know, a year or two later, they came back and did enroll. And keep in mind, most people are broke temporarily. They're not broke permanently. And that's not necessarily true, but, you know, if you're in the areas that you're in, you know, if you're not in the slums, an awful lot of people are having a temporary job situation or a temporary financial situation. It's not necessarily permanent.
Yeah, Master Oliver, that's a good point, is that if they can't afford 216, it's really unlikely that the bell curve of what they can afford is broken at 216 versus 247.
Yeah.
You know, it's just not likely. But the other thing, Master Oliver, you're not even mentioning is if you get it to 247, that's $9,000, but the renewal is that much higher too. So really bumping it up to 247 or 297 is bumping your renewal rate even proportionately that much higher. So it might really be worth 10 or 15,000 gross income in your school when you really do the math further down the line.
Yeah. And Jan, anything else to add, or was that what you wanted to chip in?
That's it.
Thank you. How many enrollments are you up to now from your event?
Well, you did 2 yesterday, right? So we're at 54 or 55. She just did 2 yesterday. I didn't do any.
55 in about a week and a half, right?
2 weeks. 2 weeks. Yeah.
2 weeks. Not a bad 2 weeks. Yeah, and those are, and Jack, those are normal 12-month enrollments at the price point she just talked about, right? Now, let's shift gears for a second. There's one other quick question I wanted to bring up because it's instructive. somebody here, Nate, I think, posted about having space to post OSHA. Oh, for years I've been following the labor law, EEOC, OSHA, et cetera, poster hanging rules. Quite expensive. I don't know why it'd be expensive, $600 a year, to make sure every little change is updated. It takes the entire wall to hang all the posters. I was wondering how many members are here handle their poster hanging and update. Does anyone know a lower cost way of making sure that we stay within the confines of posting regulations, yet hopefully don't need to cover up what seems like an acreage on our wall? Now, this is a true example. Is we have the Westminster location, and it was a franchise, got run into the ground. I absorbed it back as a corporate location and then resold it to Alan Ogle and his wife. And within like the first month, I walk in the school, and in the front office where they're doing enrollments, there's all this OSHA, all this stuff that Nate's talking about, all this crap on the wall. And I say, why is that there? And somebody who had come in, who was a CPA or some other anal retentive, maybe an attorney, said, well, you've got to have all that stuff up. It's legally mandated. And I smirked and tore it all off the wall and put it all in the dumpster. Okay? Now, I got to tell you, in 35 years, I've never had somebody from OSHA walk in and say, where's your fair employment, labor, whatever crap, right? Now, if you, and I don't know how you spend 600 years on this stuff. Hopefully you're not buying the crap. But if you feel a twinge of guilt, have the restroom or the storage room in back that only staff are allowed in, and put it in the closet, and go tell them once a quarter, go look at all that stupid crap in the closet. But don't post that crap. I mean, if you feel like somehow you've got to tell people about EEOC regulations and OSHA regulations, hell, make a copy of it and put it in their employment agreement and get them to sign off on it or something. I've always ignored all that crap.
On that, real quick, just to finish it up, there are companies that do a call, that do an email to you, that say you are required to have this thing and pay this amount of money, and it's actually not part of the government. It's somebody who is trying to get new business owners or informed business owners to spend some extra money. So
Yeah.
really not mandated. It's just something that they're trying to put.
Some of it's mandated, but it's stupid bureaucracy, and it certainly doesn't help you make a sale. You don't want it to be anywhere where the students are going to see that crap.
It hurts you. It hurts you make sales. I don't want that crap around.
Oh, absolutely. That's exactly right, Master Moody. So I wanted to address that. I mean, focus on what it takes to run your business. Something else as an employment question. Somebody told me, I said it was something about asking prospective staff members their age, and they told me, oh, you can't ask their age. That's illegal. Well, that's not true either. The only protected category on asking their age is if they're old, right? If you ask a 55-year-old how old they are, you can get into trouble. If you ask a 16-year-old how old they are, that's just fine, right? The EEOC age discrimination thing is about being too old, not about anything else. So sometimes we get like hypersensitive about stuff. I wanted to I had a couple things I wanted to address. So the first is I sent this month, rather than just kind of like the Lee Meltier materials, I got kind of a wild hair and enclosed a whole bunch of stuff that you guys, I think, need to really study. One of them is a slightly updated of that marketing checklist that I did about a month ago. And you should have all be getting this. If you're in Canada, it's probably going to take another couple weeks. But it mails out of Wichita, Kansas, by the way. So I got it a few days ago. The other is this annual marketing plan sheet, which is the one that we laugh about, that Master Smith pulled out and said, wow, this is really, you know, and gave it to me. And I said, wow, that's really good. Where'd that come from? He goes, you did it. It's like, oh, okay, well, I did a good job. It's really good. The other one, and notice it says 2013, and it really wasn't new in 2013. It's just the iteration I found on my hard drive. This was a tuition pricing sheet I did for Mile High Karate 5 years ago. And it's based on the $247 a month, not the $297. And then the last thing I sent you is a report from Dan Kennedy, actually, which I thought was really good. It's talking about a dental practice or a chiropractic practice or something like that. But it's all about how to get better on referrals, okay? And I would really recommend you guys go through and by the way, the material from Lee is really good this month too. She's got Les Brown. If you don't know Les, he is fantastic. In the vein of Zig Ziglar and so forth. But I would really recommend you go through all this material. And I'll point out that it does include all the details for the next Quickstart meeting. And absolutely everyone who is hasn't been to a live Quickstart meeting yet really needs to prioritize being here. And it's coming up pretty quickly. It's in a couple of weeks. And I'll give you a pass on the new baby, but for everybody else, you really need to plan on it. I've just looked. The flights were dirt cheap. Matt Smith, we just booked you one way for what? There was one for $98 that I refused to book because it was, you know, stupid bullshit. But the other one was, what, $198 or something like that.
Well, when you first started looking, it was 300 and something. And I said, no, I know I saw one down closer to 100. And you even found one for $63. And now that didn't include a bag. And when you upgraded it all, it was like $150 or $140. You know, pricing
yeah. And I apologize. Next year we'll send the plane for you. But everyone who is new or hasn't been to a Quickstart meeting yet should, no matter what you need to do, should book this out and be here. The one change, by the way, which we'll tell you when you get here, we probably won't do anything at my house, which it says we will, because it's there's a construction dumpster out back and everything's kind of torn up. They're recarpeting the other half of the house that didn't get tiled. But we'll plan a dinner or something on Friday night. But do plan on being there at the school on Thursday night. But again, very important to be there. If there's absolutely any way at all that you can be there, be there. Anybody who is in mastery and leadership, and of course you guys are always welcome on these Thursday meetings. It also has the information about the next meeting in Estes Park. The one in Estes Park is going to be a little different. We're going to do Friday all day at the Stanley Hotel. That is the inspiration for the book The Shining. Stephen King. In fact, they did 2 movies of The Shining. The second one was shot at the Stanley Hotel. And we'll do that on Friday. And unlike normal, we'll stay in the meeting room, which is very elegant, and they'll serve us lunch. Usually we go, you know, let everybody take a break. But given where it's at in Estes Park and the rest of the weekend, we won't do that. And then the rest of the weekend is going to be behind the scenes at the black belt testing at the YMCA camp of the Rockies. And Master Smith is an exaggeration to say it's certainly one of the 5 most beautiful areas in the country.
I love it. When we do our motorcycle riding, that's always my first choice to ride up through.
Yeah, including the time we almost got blown off of them going through Rocky Mountain National Park in the high windstorm. But it's an absolutely beautiful area. Somebody had posted the video of the bear walking into the lobby. So that's the first thing, is make sure you go through this month's package thoroughly, but do plan to be at the Quickstart meeting if you haven't been, if you're not in Leadership and Mastery. And if you are in Leadership and Mastery, not too far after that is Estes Park. And for both of them, Bob needs a good firm head count for that. If you're thinking about what staff to bring to Estes Park, lean towards the instructor crew, not the program director, marketing, sales crew, right? So head instructors, solid assistant instructors, all of that stuff. Adam, you had a question?
Well, you asked earlier about people to think I went to the Quickstart as soon as I got back. You know, I'm paying you guys. I'm listening with all you guys. I raised my prices, so everyone is brand new. I highly recommend. I got airfare 105. I'm going again this year just because when I learned came back from 130, 150. I was charging 200. And last year I got like 45 people to start off at $200 by the school season. So it's I give it 2 thumbs up that event.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Yeah, it's going to be very, 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 very thorough to get you off on the right track.
Master Oliver, if I could just remind everybody that the training is on Friday and Saturday in Colorado, on the 15th weekend. But on Thursday, we are doing that, what we call a behind the scenes at the Thornton Mile High Karate School, where you get a chance to see, these blue tops, how they're pre-framing the classes, how they're interacting with the parents. So you get to see a school and day-to-day operation of a lot of these systems that we've been talking about and doing. So it's not part of the required. It's just something that we suggest you come to. It's a very informal thing. You get to observe, and usually Master Oliver, myself, or Master Moody are there, and we're kind of in questions that people have. And that way it kind of gets you a little more understanding of the day-to-day operations.
And by the way, Jack, one of the comments that, in fact, Jan, I think you made the comment one time, is take the opportunity to drive the neighborhoods and look at the area around it and look at the parking lot. And, my crack last time was the only Mercedes that's in the parking lot was mine. I guess this year it has to be BMW or the Porsche, since I traded the Mercedes for a convertible BMW. But it's not a it's not a high-end area. It's not houses on the golf course in gated communities. It is just a normal middle-class, heavily Hispanic area, which we do very well with the recent and not recent Hispanic immigrant community. So it's not an area where everybody's driving in their Porsche and Ferrari or whatever. Again, I don't joke. The only time I've ever seen a Mercedes in the parking lot is when it was mine. So it's not an area. And again, they're at 247. I'm trying to get them at 297, and the renewal for leadership is $500 a month. They're doing $500 a month for the leadership renewal, and not having any problem with that at all.
And there's 1,000 other karate schools there, sir.
Yeah.
There's a million. Was it Master Smith and I, the first time you and I went there, I think we were driving together and we were trying to find it. We weren't sure which way to go. So I was mapping karate schools. I'm like, holy crap, there's more than, and I have a lot of martial arts schools around my schools. Phoenix, there's a billion of them, but around that Thornton school, there's more than almost anywhere I've ever seen. So anybody that's using the excuse of what you just said about the demographics, but, I have a lot of competition you just don't understand.
And Master Oliver, I think you're the one that said that the school across the street that there was in another shopping center right across the street had one of the bandit signs out on the road, karate lessons, $99, no contracts.
No. It was a couple blocks down the street, but they had a pickup truck, and they put a big A-frame sign in the truck that they would park in our parking lot periodically. Plus they had bandit signs, A-frame signs, banner on the building. I'll give them some credit for grassroots marketing.
Yeah, good for them.
The sign said $69 a month, no contract, month to month. They lasted 6 months, which is probably, looking at the space they were in, probably when they had to start paying rent. Okay. And Jack, I'll give you one more example really quickly, is if I have 200 students at $99 a month, to make it really simple, I've got a $20,000 a month school. Okay. But if I've got 200 students at $247 a month, I've got a $50,000 a month school. Now, the difference in the extra $30,000 is net profit, because we're in a business where once you pay the expenses, And most everybody is somewhere between maybe 15 and 20 all in, right? Expenses. So once you pay the hard cost, the fixed cost, everything else is either profit or it's percentages to the staff. The staff is happy because their income can double or triple. You're happy because your income can, I mean, and that's exponential, right? If I'm running a $15,000 a month school and I'm taking home $3,000 out of that and eking that out, I can move it to a $45,000 a month school, but the extra 30, what I'll do is I'll take about 20% of that off for staff, and the rest of it is just net profit. So, you know, what happens literally is that's another 25,000. So you go from 3,000 a month to 28,000 a month net. And these are real numbers. By a pricing tweak, everything else remaining the same. And where the problem is in your mind is you think, well, yeah, but that's with the same number of students. And what you think is I can have 50 students at $247, or I can have 200 at 100. Doesn't work that way, okay? Look no further than Frank Silverman trying to do martial arts schools in Walmart. As far as I know, they're all gone. They're certainly not expanding anymore because they had a big feeder of broke people and they were charging $59 a month, but you can't run a business that way. Okay, you can't run our business that way anyway. You know, and by the way, you know, there's a great conversation in that Mile High Maverick book that is, do you want to be the Apple Store or do you want to be Walmart? And that is the defining difference between Apple and just about everybody else. And it's the misplaced argument. There's an argument going around right now about, you know, why Amazon, you know, most people who work for Amazon are poorly paid, yet Jeff Bezos, well, really Jeff Bezos' salary is $80,000 a year. All of his wealth is tied up in the stock, right? But what happens is if you look at Amazon, you look at Walmart, you look at Target, they're all running on razor thin margins. I was in the grocery store business, unfortunately, for a couple years while I was in college, before I knew how to make money running a martial arts school as taught by Jeff Smith. And I got to tell you, that's the most miserable industry, and they're having to do everything on a 3% margin. We're not like that. So, but it's all about pricing leverage and retention. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay, good. Any quick questions?
Thank you, everybody, for your input on that. That helped a lot. That really did. So, thank you.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
How can I raise my price if I'm not ready to teach the basic program or black belt program? Like, if you offer the leadership program, you need the skill to teach the leadership program. You know what I mean? You have a lot of stuff on this program. So you have to learn everything before you implement it. No,
you don't. No, you don't. One is that's exactly backwards way of going about it. Okay. Is you sell it first and then you implement behind. Okay. If you go to milehighlackbelt.com on week 5, and I'm going to talk about enrollments more than renewals, but you go to milehighlackbelt.com, go to week 5, there's a video there that's literally an upgrade for the when we launched leadership. When I shot the video, and you'll hear me talk about it, the transcript is there, feel free to steal the language. I had no idea, and that's an exaggeration, but we didn't have the curriculum laid out. I didn't know the specifics. I had enough about what the program was going to be in order to sell it. We did over $750,000 in leadership program sales in November, December, and then I spent between Christmas and New Year's creating the curriculum that I then got all the staff together the first week in January and taught them. And what I knew is I needed to have enough of it down to teach the first quarter of it. And really by the time, you know, I had about a week to work on it, I had a couple years of it lined out and had the first year like written in stone. Okay. So that's the first thing, Rudy, is you're thinking about it backwards. The second thing is, what difference does it make for the next enrollment coming in? Okay. You're already teaching martial arts. What we always recommend you do is collect more testimonials, use the discipline sheets and all the things that, you know, Master Smith loves, and so do I just tease him about it. But start using the character development worksheets, start focusing on the developmental aspects beyond just the physical, get better at explaining that during the introductory process, stack up testimonials. We recommend that always. But the same people that last week you enrolled at whatever you were charging last week, you just put the new price points in place and enroll them at the new price points.
Yeah, but for the new enrollment, I have no problem. I have already prepared everything.
Right.
But it's for my active. It's for renewal.
Right.
Yeah. I think it's harder for me.
No, it's not harder for you than anybody else. It's just what's harder is getting out of your own way. What's harder is you're overthinking it.
Okay.
That's it. Okay. I mean, really, we did this in Amsterdam. School went from 12,000 US to 80,000 US. We did this in Israel. We did this in
Australia, New Zealand.
Yeah, well, Bahrain, which is right across the bridge from Saudi Arabia. It's not a Canadian thing, Rudy. It's just the way you're thinking about it, and the way you're thinking about it is influenced, colored, and limited by all of the other martial artists that you know who are doing it a different way, but whose financial success is less than what it could be. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's all about the way you're thinking about it.
Okay.
And you're absolutely right. There are two approaches. There's Eric's approach, which if you have a strong enough relationship with your students, you just explain it to them and you put it in a letter and you say, we've been charging this, we need to charge this. And if you have, what I always tell everybody though is if you have somebody on a year contract, you know, you can't change the deal in the middle of the contract. You've got them on a 3-year contract. You've promised to pay them for the 3 years. You've promised to let them pay that amount for what you promised them for the 3 years. However, you can get them to renew for a new promise, a new expanded product. But Rudy, here's what happens. I've got to tell you over and over and over again is we'll have members who spend 3 years thinking about what a leadership program should be and do nothing. And especially the MMA guys are like this. I see Robert having a different conversation in the background here. But the Muay Thai, the MMA, the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu guys all get in their own way with this and screw this up. Okay? I don't know if there's any examples. The Krav Maga guys are the worst. You don't have to know what it's going to be A to Z. You just have to have the presentation to sell it. And I've got to tell you, if you have 200 students and you sell 150 of them, you'll figure out what you're going to teach really quickly.
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
And by the way, if you try to figure it out for the next year, you're going to screw it up because after you teach it for a month, you're going to go, oh crap, that was too much, or that was too little, or that was this. And then you have to readjust the whole damn thing. It's absolutely, totally terrible to try to sit there and figure it out in advance. It's never going to work.
Yeah, I will say, make sure you show up at the next Quickstart meeting.
Right.
And we'll walk through all of that A to Z.
I will be there.
Yeah.
And also, Master Oliver and Master Moody touched on it too. All you need to do is understand that if you develop the next cycle of the material while you're teaching that cycle to the students, you're working on the next cycle. And then all you got to do is keep doing them one cycle ahead. And then what happens over a course of 2 years, you've got all your cycles together plus whatever else you've done by then, and you'll have a better idea of a more accurate without making changes. If you go put a whole year in advance and you try that first block of material and then you understand that some of this didn't work quite right, now you got to go back and change the rest of the year, whereas now all I have to do is make adjustment for the next quarter.
Yeah, and let's not get bogged down in that. Remember, our focus at Quickstart is drink from a fire hose, figure out how to do what Jan just did last week. And then number 2, make sure your pricing is right. And then once you get a huge flow of new people, we'll worry about the renewals and so forth. But, and, you know, I mean, we've got in the can a ton of leadership curriculum and stuff, and I've recommended simple books to implement and so forth. It's not very complicated. The main thing is to go through a process of goal setting, get them committed to black belt and beyond. And if you think of pricing this way, if you have 2 introductory lessons to convince them of value, imagine if you have 2 months to convince them of value. Can you convince them of a higher level of value in 2 months than you can in 2 lessons? And 2 months where they're meeting everybody, seeing other black belts, interacting with others. Robert, if you're still with us, you had a question regarding testing with the used. We test quarterly with weekly progress reviews. Explain your question, Robert.
So basically, what we have 2 platforms of martial arts that we have. It's Muay Thai and it's Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Yep.
And we've adopted a color ranking progression for grading system for both.
Mm-hmm.
So because it's not exactly one martial art platform, it's 2 different ones. We're going to institute 2 separate testing fees. Is this okay? That's the first part of the question.
Well, first, I'm not sure why you think there has to be a difference between the 2.
Okay.
From that standpoint, the second thing is from a philosophical standpoint. Well, what are you charging on the new students now?
Are we talking about the testing fees, or are we talking about the?
No, we are. What's your tuition now?
Oh, okay. So the tuition it's a crazy number. Master Moody actually looked at it and he kind of laughed a little bit.
Yeah,
we're charging $247 for all of the adults, and for the kids it was $243. So yeah, there's a small little change in the number.
Do everything the same. Okay, but you're charging a quarterly testing fee. How much are you charging for BJJ?
So therein lies the problem. Before we were charging, what were we charging? We were charging $75? I think we were charging $70 $75 before last year. So because now we want to do this on a regular, we weren't doing everything on a regular basis.
Okay. So $75. How about Muay Thai?
It was the same.
Okay. So $300 a year.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you divide $300 a year by 12, they're paying $25 a month for testing.
Right.
Why don't you just charge them $297 a month for the tuition and not charge a testing fee?
Well, there's a thought.
Well, philosophically, let me explain. And again, you can argue this both ways, but I despise testing fees below black belt. And we do a fee at black belt, but as you'll see, a lot of them are like big retreats and so forth. So really it's presented as you're covering the cost of the retreat. You're not paying us for a diploma. Okay. Now, the first part of your question, as I read it here while we were talking, was, is it okay for them to pay a fee, test them, and then fail them? Well, if they pay a fee, you test them, you fail them, and then when they retest, the fee covered the retest, there's no problem. If you have them pay $75, test, fail, pay the other $75, test, fail, pay. What happens is, in some of their minds, they believe you have an incentive to fail them so you can get paid again. I hate to ever set somebody up to draw that conclusion.
Okay, so let's go with. I like the idea of incorporating the testing fee into the tuition. I like that a lot. So let's just go with that scenario, and then say come the next quarter test, we're looking at our progress reviews. By the way, I have to thank you guys for helping us with that as far as our kids, our youth program is concerned, because now we do have an organized mindset as far as looking at the kids. And every week we're going to have progress reports, evaluations, all these different things. So now,
by the way, do the same thing with the adults, Robert. They're not different.
Yes, sir. I'm
stop differentiating. Do the same thing with the adults.
I'm kind of like Jack a little bit. I'm kind of
your own way. Do the same thing with the adults.
And
Robert, your biggest dropout rate is now, if we went through your numbers, is with the adults.
Yes, that is true.
And it's the adults need this stuff more than the kids need it. Not that the kids don't need it, but this isn't kid stuff. Now, I won't bore you with the details, but the whole evolution of all this stuff came from the ballroom dance industry with adults. When Master Smith and I were doing this in Washington, D.C., with 2,500 students, it was 90% adults. We used to get annoyed with June Reed because we would come in and talk at the test for an hour about getting good grades in school, and we had 3 kids and 100 adults. This isn't kid stuff, it's student learning stuff. If you have students who are working on a master's degree or working on a bachelor's degree in college, they're at the very least doing midterm final, midterm final, midterm final, and getting a grade. And most of those classes are doing more intermediate progress checks than midterm final, right? And whether it's a 35-year-old adult or a 22-year-old adult, if they went to college and they said in 4 years, and when I went to Georgetown and they did a comprehensive test at the end, if they said, you're just going to do the comprehensive test on economics at the end of 4 years and you pass or fail, 99.99% would fail. People need, midterm final, midterm final, midterm final. That's why almost all academic programs are structured that way, right? Master Moody did his PhD recently, but I'll tell you what, almost all PhD candidates never get their PhD. You know why? Because they have to do their thesis, and they never get their damn thesis done. You know why? Because there's no midterm final progress update on it.
Yeah, they call it something. There's a term for it called ABD. It's so common that there's a term for it. So I'm backing up what you're saying. It's absolutely right.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm sorry. I just want to make sure. So if we incorporate the testing fee into the tuition, great. So then there will not be an additional testing fee required. So we test them. So what happens when it's this? Do I still consider this a pass fail? Right. In other words, the student goes through the motions. Okay. So
sure.
then
now, if I'm in, I don't care if it's Harvard or the local community college down the street from you, if I can get an F, I can get a D, I can get a C, I can get a B, I can get an A, right? So you want to have a gradation, right? And there's the gradation of, I'm an A plus or I'm a C minus, and I passed at all of those levels. Then there's I didn't pass, right? The other thing to keep in mind on the pass fail, again, to use an academic standpoint, is it's one thing I'm taking macroeconomics at NYU, or to use a local example for you, versus I'm in the local kindergarten, right? I think of it this way, I essentially want everybody to pass the first year. I certainly don't want to have a public failure, right? The old way was you have a big test, you pass, you pass, you pass, you fail, you fail, you fail. Again, it's not disparagement, but June Reed was the master of sit down, you fail. That's not conducive for student retention, okay? So in the first year, you want to think in terms of if they've checked the requirements, they turned in their assignments, they did the right lessons and so forth, they're in all likelihood going to pass unless there's just some dramatic reason why I can't. Second year, a little bit harsher. In our case, fourth year, and they're in black belt prep going to black belt. I mean, we've historically had maybe 75% flush out during the prep process before they ever get to test. And there's like 4 tests before they get to the real test, and they've got to pass all 4 of them. So you can do an awful lot with them in year 4 if you handhold them enough in year 1 and 2, right? Think about it, kindergarten, first grade, second grade versus college. You've got to move them through the process smoothly. But again, Robert, if you're not doing midterm final, midterm final, midterm final with adults, they drop out. Some of them stay, some of them turn into world champions. But you can't build a business on I'm losing 10% a month. You've got to build it on you're losing 1 or 2% a month. And the only way to do that is to really keep touch with them, really hold their hand, pay close attention, and be doing progress checks on a regular basis, as well as some level of rank. Again, the ballroom dance thing, they were giving them medals and stuff like that. And a lot of Muay Thai, it's the color of the shirt or it's the color of the shorts. Or
well, this is exactly what we plan on doing. I will implement this for the adults. I just want to make sure.
Do it now.
That
Forget the will. You've been fucking around for a year. Do it now.
I want to get the system straight for the kids so that I know.
No. Just do it for everybody.
Okay, fair enough. So I still have a question that needs to be answered. So
So the kids have better retention, and you want to experiment with the kids before you do it with the adults.
That's kind of not where I want to go with the question. The question.
I don't care where you want to go. The question, the right question is, how do we get you from 25,000 a month to 80?
Right.
That's the right question. And the right question is Parthenon, 20 enrollments a month, and retention, right? So 20 things a month to get marketing traffic, which you haven't been doing, and it's student retention. The way you fix student retention is goals and relationship. Goals has to be short-term, intermediate, long-term. Short-term, 60 or 90 days, intermediate, a year, long-term, 3 or 4 years plus. If you don't fix the short-term, intermediate, long-term, and relationship, you're going to have high dropout rate. Your high dropout rate will always skew higher for the adults than for the kids, in part for you because you treat them differently and you're taking away things that the adults need because you want to mess around with the kids first. That's backwards. The other thing is the Parthenon. You need to have 20 marketing activities going on every month. If you look at what Jan just did, she did 54 enrollments in 2 weeks based upon, Jan, what was it? Was it 4 or 5 elementary? How many elementary schools were you at?
5.
I think it was about 10. 8.
10.
8 of them.
8. So she did orientation days at 8 elementary schools. Robert, were you with us last Thursday?
No, I was not, sir.
You better go back and listen to the replay, because what we did is we spent probably an hour on how did Jan generate 241 appointments, so far 54 enrollments, probably 100 enrollments from going to orientation days at elementary schools. And then at Eric's request, we spent the rest of the time on, if I've got more intro traffic in a week than I normally have in 6 months, how the hell do I handle it? Eric, Jan, is that a good recap of last week? Okay, so go listen to the recording. And again, Robert, the reason I'm jumping on you, and Jack to some extent, is failures ask the wrong question and focus on the wrong thing. And what's getting in your way, where's Amanda? Amanda, a year ago, same month that Robert started working with us, what were you grossing?
We were grossing 45.
What are you grossing now?
We're at 83 today.
With a couple days left.
Yes, sir.
How many enrollments did you do this month?
We have done 16 enrollments.
Okay. How about last month?
Last month we did, that was July. We did 15, and in June we did 40.
Okay. And Robert, their income demographic is roughly 30% of yours. Okay, and I'm not exaggerating one bit. Their population density is 1/10 of yours, and their income level is 1/3 of yours. Okay, so anchor in two things. One is you have more population stacked on top of you than they have in a 2-mile radius. Okay, number two, their average family that comes in is making 1/3, if not less, than the average family that you have come in. And the reason I'm pointing this out is you're asking the wrong questions and you're bogging down on the wrong things. Do 20 enrollments a month and keep them. And the way you keep them is midterm final, midterm final, midterm final, progress check, and relationship. Okay? You've got to build the relationship, short-term, intermediate, long-term goals.
And,
Does that make sense?
A bunch of intermediate questions that probably don't matter. But Master Oliver, this is valid for everybody. The guys that are making a lot of progress quickly, implement quickly, and then if it screws up, we help them fix it. You just make changes, make the implementations, you know, like Jack, just change the damn prices. And then if it screws up, we'll help you fix it. But the problem is a lot of times we end up getting bogged down in a lot of these details, getting bogged down in, well, you know, I need to spend a lot of time figuring out what the schedule is going to look like. Bogged down in whatever. And, you know, Jan admitted it herself. And I think, you know, one thing Colby did, that one thing that we keep bringing Colby up because he tends to like put a couple things into perspective. But how he got mad that time where he lost about $250,000 just because he didn't implement fast enough. But I think you do the math on some of this, and another way to do the math for Amanda, if you joined a year ago, how much money would you have made? You know, the loss in income and sanity sometimes, and just implementing this stuff quicker and implementing the right things in the right order is we're trying to help you guys with, and kind of being a little rough on you a little bit, or a lot rough on you a little bit maybe sometimes too, is really important, and just keeping you focused on the right things. I know you have other questions, but just change the one or two things, fix those, and you're going to have a lot more success quicker. And then you can clean the other stuff up later. It's okay to clean the other stuff up later. Would that be fair to say, Master Oliver? I'm just
absolutely.
First things first.
I had a conversation one time. A lot of you know Dave Kovar because he's running around, you know, doing consulting and so forth. But the business guy of their operation was his brother, Tim. And Tim and Keith Hafner and I worked very closely together for years. And Tim made a really interesting observation one time. Most of what they're doing in marketing right now are stuff that I gave them. But Tim's comment he made to me one time, which I thought was really funny, is he said, "You know what pisses me off about you, Oliver?" I said, "No, I'm not sure I want to know, but go ahead, tell me." He says, "What pisses me off is when I have a good idea, you implement it about 3 months before we do." Because literally, if they had some good idea, marketing, whatever, it's like, okay, good. And on Monday at our staff meeting, I was off with it, right? So you've got to be that way. Lloyd Irving, you know Lloyd, Robert, the biggest respect, and Lloyd got the internet part of it. He never really got everything else. A lot of the stuff that he teaches is kind of stupid. But on the internet side, he's really, really, really good. He delved really into it. But the thing I respected about Lloyd is he'd come to the marketing boot camp, and at the break, he's on the phone on his BlackBerry at the time. He's on his BlackBerry implementing things. He came to the first boot camp, was doing $7,000 a month, was on his way to Brazil to train, and raised his prices during the boot camp when he wasn't going to be back in Maryland for 2 weeks. Basically, he called his mom, who worked for him, and said, "Mom, okay, from now on the daycare thing, we're going to price this, and on the MMA, we're going to price this, and just do it." And she said, "Are you sure?" "Yes, just do it." Are you sure? You're sure? Yeah. And by the way, Lloyd, Jeff, you know where he's at. He's over by Marlow Heights.
Yeah.
He's not Marlboro, Maryland. It's not exactly
the worst demographic in the Washington D.C. area, almost.
Absolutely.
Saying something.
Yeah, it is saying something. He had an armed robbery at his house because he bought a new Aston Martin and he drove it down to the school, and a gang of guys followed him home because they thought he must be a drug dealer, because that's the kind of neighborhood it's in. They thought he must be a drug dealer, therefore he's going to have a bunch of cash laying around the house. Literally, they broke in to his basement armed. He managed to disarm one of them. The other guy ran away. I don't know if they ever caught him, because that's how bad an area he's in. Okay, but you've got to be a master implementer and not be asking. Everybody should be asking questions, but what you're never going to get from me is answering the wrong question, right? And you'll see a lot of times online is I'll see other people answering the question that was asked. You oftentimes hear me not answering the question that was asked, but instead saying, well, that's the wrong question. If you don't get that crap going on out of your mind, you're never going to accomplish much, right? So, Robert, I wish you would do 25,000 to 85,000 the next 12 months and not be on a plateau. But you've got to do two things. You've got to Parthenon it. You've got to have 20 marketing things going on every month. You got to wake up in a cold sweat every morning worrying about that, right? And not just have it be online. You've got to have it be all of the different pieces. And number two is retention, which is relationship and its goals. They've got to be focused on getting a black belt or your equivalent in Muay Thai, and they've got to be focused on short-term, intermediate, long-term, midterm final. Does that make sense?
Yep.
And everybody needs to hear the one or two big things they need to do, not the little nitty-picky things that they need to do, Master Oliver, too. Because we just told Jan something about, raising the prices that she can do right now. So you guys we're still going to push you guys when you're at 80,000, like Amanda. We're still going to push you guys too. So the concept of implementing quickly is we're still going to push you in those kind of areas as well.
Yeah, Amanda, how many active are you at?
We are right at 500.
$47 a month times, you said 400 or 500?
500.
Okay. How much is $47 a month times 500 people?
A lot of money.
300,000 a year net profit.
Right.
The net profit part's the most important piece.
Right. Exactly.
It's an extra 300,000 that you or your staff keep. And in your staff, you got some siblings, right? I mean, so as a mom, you're happy for them to be making more money too, right?
And Master Oliver, Robert, don't take it personally, and John, Jack, don't take it personally. But you see, even Amanda, how many of you out there would not even care? You would be happy as a kid on holiday if I'm making 83,000 a month. But here's Amanda, who, why do we do that? Because we know she's $100,000 school, and we know she can do it. She's proved that she can implement. Now all we've got to do is just get her to tweak it. And that's the difference between a school making 100,000 and a school making 20,000, is they start implementing the things that we say and don't get sidetracked on the things that they think are important. Listen to what Master Oliver is saying on what is important at this time in your training. We might be telling somebody else, like the advanced people, we might be pointing them in a different direction because they've gotten this other part down. So we're constantly going to never be satisfied with where you're at. We're going to be looking to see if we can tweak your business to make it better.
Yeah. And I want to leave you guys with one thing. I'm wearing my Rolex Presidential today. And in that Everything I Wish I Knew When I Was 22 book, there's a chapter called The $1 Million Watch. Any of you guys read that chapter? And so this literally is what I dubbed the $1 Million Watch. And I wanted to tell the story briefly before we run out of time, because I think it is instructive. Is we end up a lot of times with people who are in a crisis mentality, right? Now, this watch, by the way, if you guys don't know, I paid $8,500 for it in 1989, but right now it retails for, with the diamond face and so forth, probably $37,000. Is that about right, Master Smith? You probably kept up with it better than I did. So let's say it's $37,000 watch, okay? And what happened is I went through a year where I got divorced, had like 90% of the staff quit within about a week of each other. did Chapter 7 and Chapter 11. Okay, and it was the last Great Recession. You know, the worst recession since the Great Depression. It was when Neil Bush helped implode Silverado banks, etc. If you guys don't remember, it was the last time. I had a condo that I was renting out that I had bought for $95,000. That when I got rid of it was worth $35,000. So it's not like the last recession was the first time this stuff had happened. It happened in the 80s as well. It happened not long after I signed 6 leases at an average of $400,000 a year each at 24 years old. So I was going through a year where we were on track to hit 1.3 million and in fact hit 750,000. Now, 750,000 versus you expected 1.3 million. What that meant was we lost $250,000. Okay. Including I ended up owing the IRS for payroll taxes because I made the mistake that I tell everybody not to, but I was 25 and didn't know better at the time and didn't have anybody telling me about this. I owed the IRS $168,000 in trust fund monies. Somewhere I used to have in my office the sheet they sent me when I paid it in full. And it was a badge of honor that I had paid them every damn penny. But in that year, and by the way, it was the best learning experience I could ever have because there is no such thing for me anymore as a crisis related to finances that faze me. Has to be the kid's health or something like that. Nothing related to money phases me one way or the other. And what I learned pretty quickly is, you know, and I've quoted a bunch of times, there's no crisis in a school that 100 new students can't solve. But the story of the watch was I sat down and I said, okay, we've got to do at least $1 million this year. And what, you know, and this is the house just was foreclosed and I'm making payments on the frickin' ex-wife and everything else is going on. So I sat down and said, what could I do? What goal could I set to if we did $1 million this year? And the house on the top of the mountain in Genesee was a bit too much of a stretch, especially with ruined credit. And the Ferrari or the Mercedes was maybe a bit of a stretch. But I set the goal to get the most expensive Rolex that they had in the jewelry store. So I went down to the jewelry store in January and I said, do you do layaway? Yep. Okay. How long can I leave it in layaway? They said, well, I mean, as long as you're paying on it, you know, as long as you want. Okay. How much do I have to give you to put it in layaway? $500. Okay. And I said, well, how often do you need payments? They said every month. Okay, fine. So I paid them $500 every month to keep my now $36,000 Rolex on layaway, right? So what happened was I got the watch out on November 1st because before we hit the renewal blitz, we had done $1 million. And then we did the renewal blitz and did another $300,000 or $400,000. That year we finished with $1,380,000, and this is 1989. So you can triple that number more or less for today's dollars. Okay, I think the factor is 2.7, but if you go, you know, 1.3, that's the equivalent of 4 million in today's dollars. But the story I think is instructive. We see a lot of people who they encounter a little bit of a financial crisis. Oh my goodness, I owe $25,000 on credit cards. I'm 2 months behind with the landlord, there's a problem. The IRS just contacted me because, right? Whatever it is, we have a lot of people who encounter some little short-term financial blip and freak out. Well, I've got to tell you, there's no financial crisis, there's no recovery that between Master Moody, myself, and Master Smith, we haven't weathered, we haven't been through, we haven't come back from. And I don't care whether it's divorce. I've never had anybody accuse me of any kind of sexual stuff. I've never had any of that kind of stuff. But anything else is the organization, some employee has been accused of it. Somebody has stolen from me, you know, whatever the numbers are. We have been through all of those things. My standing joke for years with my staff was they used to think I had videos in all the schools because I picked up on everything going on. But the thing was, there was so many shenanigans going on at the Junior Institute behind the scenes that I would say, your problem is I was a staff member there, and I saw what was going on behind the scenes that June Reed didn't know about, and you can't get away with it with me because I know about it all. Not that I was doing it, but there was the guy doing coke in the sauna with underage girls and one thing or another, and I was aware and paid attention and took notes and made sure that stuff wasn't happening under my watch. Does that make sense to everybody? So rule number one, there's no crisis you're going to encounter that we can't walk you through solving. Number two is short-term financial challenges are never that big a problem. Just take a deep breath and focus on a great copywriter marketing person by the name of Gary Halbert. He called it Operation Money Suck. In other words, there's no problem that's going on. The phone is ringing and the IRS guy is at your front door and the landlord is posting notices and all that shit's going on. Sit down and say, how do I get another 100 students? And ignore everybody until you go get the 100 new students at a couple hundred a month each, and all of the problems are solved. Does that make sense? I mean, you really have to anchor that in and focus on not getting stressed out. One of the things that I did, by the way, is I recognized when I was going from we should have done 1.3 million, instead we did 750,000, and I just lost $250,000 in 1988 dollars, by the way. So that's the equivalent of 750,000 today. Is I said the number one thing that I need is a difference in strategy. 1 month, instead of paying the rents, which cumulatively were $25,000, I think. Instead of paying the rent, I loaded 22 staff members on a plane and took them to Syracuse, New York, to watch behind the scenes of what was going on at the single most profitable school I had ever seen, which was a little 1,300 square foot in Syracuse, New York, run by Steve LaValle, who was putting a duffel bag full of cash in the trunk of his 911 convertible every night and speeding home at 120 miles an hour. So the place that you invest is you invest in knowing what to do and having somebody point out what it is you should be doing. Jeff Smith knew me well then as well as now, but he knows, and everybody else knows, that if I had a choice between paying the landlord, paying the IRS, and investing in what it is we should do next, I always invested in what we should do next because I knew that would create enough money to pay everything else. But if I tried to divide up an inadequate amount of money and make everybody happy, you made nobody happy. Master Smith, anything to add to that little tirade before we call it a day, or Master Moody?
No, I think that's really important. That we get a lot of people saying, well, I can't budget for a certain amount of marketing, or I can't budget for this or that. But then you do the math and they're making $2,000 or $3,000 per member lifetime value. It's like you can't afford not to do marketing. You can't afford not to be honest, you can't afford not to have us helping you. You know, those are things that make you money. And it's what you've got to focus on. But it goes along with what you said before, Master Oliver, and what we were, giving Robert a hard time on. And sorry, Robert, but, it's good for everybody to hear. You've got to focus on the things that are going to make a big difference right now. That's what this is about. And then, when we're with the guys at the leadership events, you've already made some of those big differences. Now it's still going to be for you guys, make the big thing. Amanda, you can share later what I was texting everybody. I texted Amanda that, hey, do the $47, add that onto your program and do it right now. Right, Amanda? I in the middle of this, I texted her and she's going to do it. She promised me, I'm saying it publicly now, she's going to add that on. And then, pretty soon.
I want to hear her say it so that she has some skin.
Oh, okay. She's got to say it. I've got a text conversation I screenshotted too. Okay, Amanda?
Yes. I'm texting my staff right now, and I'm telling them, all right, I said it. We're doing it 2:47. Start now. I already texted them.
I got a screenshot of it and everything too. The text flow, everything. She said it publicly. But I mean, that's going to be the
well,
big.
I didn't say it publicly, but you're going to make it.
Well, you made it public with your staff now, so you did it. Good job.
This is true.
Amanda, make a commitment.
Whew. Oh, well, I just did.
She did, sir. She did.
Okay.
Right. Good job, ma'am.
I won't sleep all weekend, but I did.
Well, who gives a shit about that?
I do.
Yeah. Amanda's next commitment is her goal to make 100,000. So that we're going to do in the next within the next 3 to 6 months.
Oh yeah, by the end of the year with the blitz and everything going on, well, I'm excited about that. So
I think Justin tried to ask the question.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
Yeah.
At the event in Colorado, can we maybe put us into some of these uncomfortable situations instead of listening to it all the time, actually force us to do some of the stuff? I don't have goals set myself. I'm listening to all this stuff, which is all psychological. I have the exact same issues going. So anything you can do to make it as uncomfortable as possible for me so that I push through these barriers.
I promise you will spend at least 90 minutes on step-by-step goal setting for 12 months.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
And the other thing, Master Oliver, that you said that was so important is don't get distracted by the small stuff. Focus on what you need to focus on. We are looking at your numbers. We're looking at where you are. When we tell you to focus on the marketing, then don't go be stressing out about your rotating curriculum or stressing out about testing and all those other details, because we're not trying to make you a black belt in 6 months. It's going to take a while. We've got to get traction. You know, Amanda is doing, we're emphasizing stuff to Amanda to get her to 100,000. Well, for the smaller schools, we're emphasizing things to get you to the 40 or 50,000. So stay focused right now. All of our new people on the marketing, get your price set, make sure you have a good intro and a good enrollment process, and don't stress out over the day-to-day problems that every school owner has. Don't let that sidetrack you from doing what you need to do to get 100 new students.
Correct.
All right.
Okay. Well, so with that, and Master Moody can blame me today. We're way over our timeline, but I thought that was useful to address. Do please be at the Quickstart meeting. And if you're a master in leadership already, make sure you're at the, I think the behind the scenes of the black belt testing will be very helpful. And Jan, to reiterate, focus on teaching staff versus marketing sales staff if you have to prioritize. Sound good? Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Okay, guys.
Yes, sir.
Bye-bye.